Hello, fellow metallurgists. This is Kellen from Killing for Company, and today I'm going to be covering the latest record by Relics of Humanity, their third full-length entitled Absolute Dismal Domain. So Absolute Dismal Domain is the third full-length from Relics of Humanity. Their first with Willowtip since signing with the label in 2019. For those curious, the last sort of major release from this band was an EP that came out in 2019 entitled Obscuration. Relics of Humanity have been around for a while. I think the first demo came out in 2007, but amongst different sort of death metal projects from in their home country of Belarus and sort of other international collaborations, this project in particular has sort of slowed its output a good deal over the last decade. The brand of brutal death metal that they play is primarily informed by the likes of California's Disgorge or Cenotaph from Turkey, and the band released a statement regarding Absolute Dismal Domain here, and it's meant to be a concept record. So I'm quoting here: "The story told across these 9 tracks is about absolute ubiquitous annihilation of light, both spiritually, God, and physically, sun and stars. This is the most brutal stuff about blackness and ungodliness ever created." Well, that's quite a claim, but we're going to get into sort of the more abstract notions of how this record delves into sort of the destruction of light and spirituality, so on and so forth. So the principal member of this band that's been around since the beginning is Sergei Laik, and the rest of the band seems to be joining deeper into the catalog. So forgive my pronunciation here on these Belarusian names, but Pavel Lobkovskivly plays bass, starting in 2014. Vladislav Voroskotov, a drummer, joining in 2019, and then Flo Butcher, a French vocalist, most notably is the Vile live vocalist, a band that sort of coincides with their Disgorge influence from California. Anyway, he joins them on this latest offering, Absolute Dismal Domain. With all this sort of concept record in mind, and like I had sort of referred to, primarily being informed with the kind of brutal death metal that emerged around the turn of the millennia, what can you expect here? What makes this anything unique in a genre that tends to be a little bit samey or predictable? Which probably, first and foremost, this is a brutal death metal record, and we're going to talk about the atmospheric qualities later, but for a band that's been around this long, almost 2 decades, the first thing you should know is the more traditional sort of brutal death metal elements, they do incredibly well. Let's just take the third track here, which is entitled Taking the Shape of Infinity. They do a great job in terms of understanding sort of dynamic push and pull. There's a sort of a blast beat section. There's sort of percussive quality between the riffing style and the drumming. They're sort of combined. While it's nothing sort of completely new under the sun, it is something that they do with great effect, and they exhibit enough fluency and understanding of how to exercise this to make a brutal death metal listen a little bit more tolerable. Okay, now with the standard brutal death metal fare out of the way, the most important aspect of this record is this kind of, as they refer to, ubiquitous destruction of light, which sounds incredibly abstract, but I think to their credit, they back that up with this eerie sense of atmosphere. Now, whether it's alternative guitar tracking or the additions of well-placed sort of synthesizers, being able to discern that for as myself, I can't quite make out, but that's less important than sort of driving home the fact that there's some interesting sort of atmospheric qualities that are happening on this record that give you that sense of sort of cosmic apocalypse, right? So the track that we're going to highlight here is Summoning of Those Who Absorbed. It has this sort of slower down a tempo section where it just can feel like sort of a slow, sort of groovy breakdown riff. Doesn't quite get into slam territory, but as it sort of slows down, what you do feel is this sort of creep in of those additional sort of guitar and synth arrangements. This is something that they do quite often, and I think that actually helps the overall listen here for Relics of Humanity. If this is something that they sort of went to sparingly, I would feel the album would be underserved by this edition, and I think would also undercut sort of the artistic statement they're trying to make here. So the fact that they go to this quite often really improves the overall listening experience on Absolute Dismal Domain. And the glimpse we're going to get here is on the track Summoning of Those Who Absorbed. It's moments like this on Absolute Dismal Domain that I think we can best understand sort of the concept that they're going for. And it really matches, right? I first saw this album artwork, and it's this kind of sort of sci-fi, levitating entity, this odd shape that exists over a black ocean. It feels surreal. It feels like it's out of sci-fi horror. And these sort of additional atmospheric qualities, I think, are the hallmark character that sort of employ the concept throughout this entirety of the listen. Now, while those sort of down-tempo atmospheric qualities are consistent, they're also at times a little bit, they play with them and add additional elements. So the next track we're going to look at is Paralyzing the Light 2. And what makes this one a little bit interesting is that while that sort of slow down tempo element creeps in, they also marry it with a guitar solo. But instead of the guitar solo sitting right out in front of the mix, it's actually recessed a little bit deeper into the overall composition of the song. So that guitar sort of is in some way veiled, and it sits right within sort of this eerie atmosphere that's being created. I think it's just a good way to mix up this quality, and it shows that they have some sort of diversity in terms of how they want to employ it overall over the course of this record. Now, while I do think the atmospheric qualities on this record are the most sort of important, some things for you to take home after listening to this or watching this review, I don't want to also steer you away from the idea that there aren't some interesting death metal or brutal death metal aspects of this record as well. They are veterans of the genre at this point in time, and there's some interesting sort of dynamics at play. So the next track we're going to listen to is a clip from his creation that no longer exists. There's a cool sort of a moment where the guitarist, Sergei, just sort of is blistering through this section, and the rest of the band decides to sort of join him, retreat, join him back again, and then finally come back all the way into the fold for the entirety of the song. But it's this interesting sort of like give and take where you get a very sort of dense, fast riff, and then it's punctuated by the band's designed, ability to sort of jump in, retreat, and jump back in. So it's a cool sort of concept that it employs itself later on in the record, and is a standout moment on the listen overall. So in summary, this is a quality brutal death metal release very early in 2025. For a band like Relics of Humanity that's been sort of absent in terms of a full-length release, and overall material since their last full length was 2014, last EP was 2019, so it's been some years since they put out a sort of meaningful contribution to the genre. For them to join back here very early in 2025 and put out a really quality release, I think for anyone who's sort of joining this band, it's a welcome addition. For this time period, things like slamming or bass drops are relatively predictable in terms of added elements into brutal death metal. Their choice to explore atmosphere, especially to do so within the world of a concept record, I think actually works incredibly well for them. So great release from Relics of Humanity, very early in 2025. I'm happy to see them return and sort of throw their name in there, looking to become established alongside, really well-known bands in 2025 like Defeated Sanity. There's another band from Belarus, experimentation, who play in this world as well. So I don't necessarily want to call this a scene coming out of Belarus, but there are some sort of label mates and countrymen who are doing this and doing it incredibly well. So solid release from Relics of Humanity here. If you're interested in a brutal death metal album that has some sort of additional interesting pieces to contribute to the genre, don't want to take this the wrong way. This is not a progressive listen. This is not an ambient listen. This is still a brutal death metal album, but their additions here prove to be incredibly welcome, and I'm encouraged to see where they are in the future in terms of building this quality into their future releases. Thanks for tuning in and checking out a review over here at Heavy Metallurgy. You can catch me on this channel every Wednesday at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for Album Club. There are more reviews posted to this channel weekly, and you can tune in and check us sort of review new upcoming releases. And then, as always, Heavy Metallurgy on Friday, 9 o'clock for sort of the Hallmark show. We all sit down with members of the heavy metal YouTube community and talk about all sorts of different things. So thank you so much for tuning in and watching. Until then, I'll see you guys later. Bye.